And welcome to Imagination Fun Time. I am your host, Brandon Devine. Hello, how are you today? How are you folks? I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're doing well on this Monday. It is Monday, August 30th, 2021. Summer is winding down. I'm sure all the parents are happy because all the little brats are going back to school. All the college kids are going out to live their best lives and just be the best. As you can tell, I'm a little annoyed with the college kids, but that's only because I live with the college kids down here in Arkansas. And just like, it was so nice all summer, like the apartment, like not having as many people around the apartment complex. And then last week, they all just moved back in, and now it's just chaos, and there's just so many loud, obnoxious fucking college kids just partying all the time right now. So that's always fun. But right now I'm out of the house. I'm out of the apartment. I'm actually recording this podcast at my mom's house, which is nice. Get away from the craziness and get into the nice suburbs. These sort of count as suburbs around here in Arkansas. They're all up on hills. I mean, they're suburbs, but it's not really true suburbs or whatever, not in my opinion. It's like, I just compare everything to, like, Orchard Park. Like, if it's not like Orchard Park, it's not, like, a real suburb, even. I don't know. Everyone's got their own opinion. I used to tell people in California that I thought the Valley counted as the suburbs of Los Angeles, and people said I was crazy. Said, like, no, San Fernando Valley is, like, its own city. It's like its own city, kind of, but, like, it's got a lot of big neighborhoods and stuff like that. So everyone's got their own opinion. But either way, it's time for me to take some time out of the day and talk to you folks and hopefully entertain you a little bit and maybe educate you a little bit. So let's get into some news. What is the news today? All right. So IMDb, the top news of today, Monday, August 30th, 2021 at 3:47 p.m. The top news, sadly, is Ed Asner. My Ed Asner died at 91. My generation, kids my age and my generation, kids younger than me, know Ed Asner, if they even know who he is, would know him as being the star of the hit, critically acclaimed, Academy Award-winning Disney Pixar movie Up, where he voiced the lead character, grumpy old man Carl Fredricksen. That's what my generation knows it best for. What he's overall best known for is his portrayal of the character by the name of Lou Grant. Lou Grant started out as a character, as one of the main supporting characters on the Mary Tyler Moore Show in the 70s, one of the most critically acclaimed and popular television shows of the 1970s. And then, like a lot of TV shows, especially back then, there was spin-offs. And Mary Tyler Moore had one spin-off called Lou Grant, which was unique because the Mary Tyler Moore Show is a sitcom. It is a situation comedy. But Lou Grant, the spin-off, became a full drama. And Ed Asner won Emmy Awards for portraying Lou Grant on both Mary Tyler Moore, for which he won an Emmy for Outstanding Actor in a Comedy Series. And then he won for the Lou Grant series, where he won an Outstanding Performance in a Drama Series. So I think he could be like the only actor, or maybe one of few, probably the only actor that's ever won multiple Emmy Awards for portraying the same character in two different series in two different genres. And to me, that's a lot of skill as an actor. You know, you go portraying a character for several years in a more comedic sense to now portraying it in a very serious setting. And that takes a lot of work. It's definitely not an easy transition for both the actor and the character. So Ed Asner definitely put in the work, and he did an amazing job, and he will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, Ed Asner. Other top news. Candyman towers over box office with an impressive $22 million debut. I mean, that's not bad, $22 million. It's pretty good. I'm just not much of a horror person. I do like horror films. I've grown to appreciate them more and more. I'm sure at some point on this podcast I will discuss a horror film. But it's definitely just the genre of movie that I watch the least is horror movies. But I know a lot of my friends have been excited, waiting for the new Candyman movie. And I'm sure it's impressive 22 million debut. That's pretty good. So I'm sure it's getting pretty good reviews, and I hope it does really well. Let's see. You, season 3 to premiere on Netflix in October. I think, isn't You like, it's about like a serial killer or something. I'm not really sure. I know a bunch of girls at work they like watching it, but I've just never watched it. So okay, that's good. Season 3, that's pretty nice. Let's see. The Problem with Jon Stewart sets Apple TV premiere date. Oh, thank God. Honestly, we need Jon Stewart. I need Jon. The world needs Jon Stewart to keep commenting on how stupid and crazy people are. Jon Stewart. He was one of the best talk show hosts, I think, of all time. His run of hosting The Daily Show for so many years was fucking amazing. He did such an amazing job with that show. And he's just overall a fucking hilarious person, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then the Oscars Academy postpones all in-person events and screenings until 2022. Because Hollywood has to be progressive. They have to play it safe to show that they care. Honestly, it might not be a bad thing. It's honestly probably not a bad thing to still postpone certain things. COVID's still going around. The Delta variant is still big and hot out in the world. So, you know what, folks? If you want to help, go get the vaccine. I'm fully vaccinated, have been for many months. Do your best. Do your part. Don't be a sheep. So that's all really in the news today. All right, let's get into this discussion today. What I wanted to talk to you folks about is a show by the name of The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron. Now, my generation, kids grew up in my generation, all know Jimmy Neutron, all remember the amazingness of Jimmy Neutron. People who are older, my parents' age, my older stuff like that, maybe not have heard of it because the whole series itself, as of this year, is only like 20 years old. So like if you weren't watching Nickelodeon stuff for the past 20 years, you definitely probably weren't on the ride for Jimmy Neutron. But it's a fun show about a boy genius, a 10-year-old boy genius who, has his own underground secret laboratory and just the wacky adventures that he gets in with his friends around the world and in space and throughout time and other dimensions. And, it's a cartoon. You can just take it to wherever the hell you want. It's great power of animation. The whole series itself is a spin-off of what was originally just a movie that Nickelodeon produced back in 2001, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. And then that movie became very, very successful. I'm pretty sure it was even nominated for an Academy Award during the early years of the animation categories in the Oscars. And then that success led to Nickelodeon ordering it to a full series. And it ended up running for about 5 years after that. 5 years. And I watched every episode as a kid. I was always excited for new episodes of Jimmy Neutron. They did a lot of really good stuff. They did this awesome thing with crossovers with Fairly Odd Parents. They did a few different TV movies and special episodes, and just overall, like, really funny. Overall, I've always found it really funny. The reason I want to talk about this show today, though, on the podcast, is because of the two episodes I want to talk about are episodes that, it's a kid's show marketed towards kids, but both these episodes have tons and tons and tons of movie references in there. Movies that, most kids, when they're watching this, 9, 10, 11 years old, probably haven't seen a lot of these big movies that they're making references to. And that, to me, just shows, like, the fun abilities that, you work hard, you make it in the film industry, animation industry, and you get to get to a level where you're producing a show like Jimmy Neutron, you're making a show like this, that you can throw in references to all your favorite old movies and like show, like hopefully help introduce a new generation of kids to awesome films. So this first episode is called Lights, Camera, Danger. This episode, let's see, it aired on November 27th, 2004. It was directed by a man named Keith Alcorn and written by Stephen Banks, John A. Davis, and Steve Odenkirk. The whole basic plot of this episode is there's a contest being held in Retroville, a screenplay contest where everyone submits a movie screenplay, and the winner will have that screenplay made into a movie by top director Quentin Smithy. So naturally, Jimmy and all his friends enter, and naturally, Jimmy ends up winning. And Jimmy's movie goes into production, but the whole production is just chaos because every day Jimmy and his friends are shooting this movie, being actors in this movie, and they're constantly almost being killed by on-set accidents and bad props and just all sorts of craziness and nonsense. Come to find out that the whole movie contest is just a elaborate plot to get Jimmy Neutron and his friends together so his enemy, Professor Finbar Calamitous, can kill him. I mean, that's just good family entertainment. A whole episode's about a middle-aged man, trying to kill a bunch of fifth graders. Average Nickelodeon television stuff. And I mean, the whole episode itself, it's a pretty basic plot. Bad guy a few attempts, tries to kill the good guy. The good guy eventually gets wise and battles the bad guy, and the bad guy goes to jail. Nothing too crazy about that. But this episode just has tons and tons of references to so many different movies. Just some of the basic ones, like they do a scene parodying The Matrix. They do scenes parodying Lord of the Rings and Titanic and E.T., Chicago, Harry Potter, James Bond, Shaft even, and Jurassic Park, and just tons more. Like, there's a song that they do, one of the scenes that they film where Jimmy and his friends almost get killed is they're doing a song, a musical number, which is just a parody of Chicago. And within the song, the lyrics to the song have a ton of references to other movies. They reference the Alien movies. They reference Terminator, Ghostbusters, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the Mummy movies, Jaws, and Indiana Jones. All in this span of this one short scene. Which to me, I thought that was pretty cool. That must have taken the writers a minute to come up with that. I mean, it's not like a catchy song. It's pretty average, but it's still pretty cool to put all those references in that most kids aren't going to get. But if you're a cinephile like me and you look back on it, it's a pretty cool thing. Like, holy crap, that's reference and that reference and that reference. And they even put some references into somewhat insider information into the movie industry, because the character, the Hollywood director character in the episode, his name is Quentin Smithy, and he's an obvious parody, exaggerated parody of my hero, Quentin Tarantino, who is he's a very eccentric person, a very energetic person, a very dramatic person, and it's just like the stereotype now for a film nerd becoming a big movie director. So this episode was my first introduction to Quentin Tarantino, because I at this point, when this episode came out in 2004, I definitely had not seen any of Tarantino's movies at that point. I think at 2004. So yeah, this is around a set time that the second part of Kill Bill was coming out. So I never that was definitely not some movies that my parents were taking me to the theater to see. But the other part of his last name is actually a very interesting side note. Smithy. in Hollywood, in filmmaking, Hollywood, it's like an unwritten clause almost, an unwritten rule that directors can do. It hasn't, I don't know if it's been followed recently, it's more back in like the 80s, 70s, 90s, stuff like that. But I think it still can count to this day, where if a director gets through to production, finishes a movie, and then realizes that they hate it, or they just problems arise during production and they quit, but they're still being credited for the movie, the director can have the movie credited to Alan Smithy, which is the term that directors use for when they don't want credit for their film. Honestly, I can't. When I was looking it up, like trying to look up like if there's any like big well-known movies that have the Alan Smithy credit on it, and there's not like really any big major movies. There's like a bunch of like smaller movies. I found out that David Lynch, when he directed Dune, the theatrical release of Dune, David Lynch approved of. But when Dune was broadcasted during the 80s on television, the studio re-edited the movie for television broadcast. And David Lynch did not approve at all of any of the cuts that they made for the television broadcast. So he didn't want his name credited on the TV broadcast of Dune, so he ended up crediting in the TV version as Alan Smithy. And that's just, I've only directed student films. I've never directed a full-length feature film. But I can imagine like the pain and torture that you go through. Like it's pure pain and torture half the time making a movie. It's hard. It's soul crushing. And then to go through that process and then to not want credit on it, that's just gotta suck. Like you put in all that time, effort, and work, and you just basically have nothing to show for it. So I really feel bad. I also do feel for directors when they choose to go that path. There was a line in the show where Jimmy is talking to Quentin Smithy about, well, I didn't write this in my script. Why are you shooting this? And Smithy's like, director, writer, I win, my say. And that's just true in Hollywood. Like, there are tons of times on sets that writers will be there and something is being filmed that wasn't written into their script, and then they confront the director about it, and the director or producer or something will just hold the power over them and be like, too bad, I got the power, we're doing it this way. But I didn't write it this way. Too bad, motherfucker. I mean, that's always sucks when that happens. And then Jimmy's dad in the show, Hugh, he wants to be a part of the movie, so Quentin makes him Donut Boy, aka Craft Services. And it's funny throughout the episode because he just like constantly is like screwing everything up, like thinking like he's a star of the movie, aka he's just getting people donuts. But on set, especially in LA and big time stuff, craft services is really important. Like, you need food, you need snacks in order to get through that day. So, if you're ever on set, always be nice to the craft service people. Always be nice to them. They're the ones feeding you. And catering. Always be nice to catering as well. I remember one time in LA, when it was on. I don't want to say the show was on, but we were on set and there was the catering manager ended up flipping out and yelling at like a couple of the background actors because some of the background actors like weren't happy with some of the options being given at the craft service table, and the guy in charge of catering just flipped out and like threw some stuff on the ground. I was like, you guys are all ungrateful bastards. I worked my ass off and I'm like, nothing's good enough, blah blah blah. And it's just like it was kind of funny. I mean, it wasn't really funny. It was kind of funny, but I also felt bad for the guy else because honestly, like the actors were being like really pretentious. Like they really wanted like certain specific things, but at the same time, we're background extras. Like we just have to take what we can get. Like you just gotta suck it up. So just if you're ever on set, always be nice to people giving you food. It's always important. So that's really all I have to say about that episode. Now, the second episode I want to talk about is an episode called Monster Hunt. This was aired on November 11th, 2003. It's directed by a man named Mike Gasway and written by a man named Gene Grillo. So the plot of this episode is there is a monster. There is some sort of a monster terrorizing and attacking people when they're in Lake Retroville. And so naturally, the town all comes together in a big town meeting to figure out how are we going to get rid of this monster? How are we going to stop the monster? And then Jimmy obviously wants to stop it using some science and some gadgets and, his big brain to show that he's awesome. And so Jimmy and his friends Sheen and Carl end up going out into the lake on some crazy old fish captain's boat, and they ended up finding and battling with this monster, and the monster ends up destroying their boat and attacking them and just going nuts and crazy, and eventually they're able to shrink. They find out that the reason that there's a monster in Lake Fayetteville, it's actually a giant mutated turtle. The turtle was Jimmy's friend Carl. It's his old turtle that he released into the lake years ago because Carl became allergic to the turtle. And Jimmy's dad has apparently been dumping just tons of old radioactive waste from Jimmy's lab into the lake, just, getting rid of the garbage and just being stupid, not thinking. So the radiation caused the turtle to become a giant monster. And so Jimmy's plan was to use an anti-radiation pill or something like that to have the monster swallow it and turns back into a normal turtle, which they're able to do at the end. The ship captain's boat ends up getting destroyed, but they all live in the end, and the turtle's there, and they all live happily ever after. Now, if you're wondering, that kind of story sounds familiar. Where have they done that before? Have they done a movie or a TV show with using that kind of story? Well, they did. Because this whole episode, Monster Hunt, is just almost a shot-for-shot remake parody of Jaws. This episode, as a child, was my first introduction to Jaws. Starting from the very first shot of the episode is a POV shot of something swimming up in the water, all menacing, to get some woman who turns out to be Jimmy's teacher, Miss Fowl, just swimming in the water. And they even used the dun 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 the classic Jaws music, the classic John Williams theme, throughout the episode. So that first shot, Miss Fowl obviously playing the role of Chrissy, who gets eaten in the beginning of Jaws. Then it cuts to the town meeting. Just exactly like the town meeting in Jaws, where Quint scratches the blackboard and gets everybody's attention, and it's just all creepy and menacing and cool. Jimmy ends up going out with his buddies onto this guy's boat, which the boat looks exactly like the Orca, Quint's boat in Jaws. It looks exactly like it. And while the sea captain in the episode doesn't look fully like Quint, definitely has a lot of Quint's qualities. The weathered old seaman, and the weathered old seaman, just beaten down by life and experience and stuff like that. And it's just kind of crazy and loopy and stuff like that. The man goes by the name of Captain Betty. Captain Betty ends up talking to Sheen and telling Sheen about this crazy story. I think of how he lost his leg or arm or something. That in itself is a parody of when Quint tells Brody and Hooper the famous Indianapolis story. Which is still my favorite scene in Jaws. I love the Indianapolis scene. I've done that monologue by myself, just for fun, just to practice my acting skills. I've done that monologue a bunch of times because it's so fucking good. Later, Sheen actually ends up saying to Jimmy the most iconic line from Jaws, "I think we're going to need a bigger boat." Literally says, Jimmy, I think we're gonna need a bigger boat. I that line definitely have heard like throughout like cinema history, like throughout like other parodies and jokes and TV shows and stuff like that. So I don't know if that was my first time hearing that line, but still obviously the most famous line in Jaws. When the turtle attacks the boat and the boat starts to sink and the turtle attacks Sheen, it just rips Sheen's pants off and eats them. But the scene that was shot in the exact same way that in Jaws, the shark attacks Quint and then fully eats him and kills him. Obviously, you know, in a TV show, you're not going to show a giant radioactive turtle devouring a fifth grader, even though that would have been fucking sweet to see. But yeah, so the turtle, but also when the turtle's attacking the boat is literally sinking in the exact slow manner that the orca sank in Jaws, starting from the back, starting from the stern and going down, the bow sticking out into the air. So this starts slowly sinking, and then like finally like only the tall antenna is sticking up the top. So Jimmy ends up giving Carl the pill and tells Carl, "All right, Carl, you gotta use your straw to shoot the pill into the turtle's mouth, kind of like how basically shooting a spitball." So Carl climbs up on top of the antenna. He takes aim, and then I didn't notice at the time until I learned it later. Carl says, "Smile, you son of a sea turtle," and then shoots the pill into the turtle. And that's, you know, obviously parodying Brody's famous line from when he shot and finally killed the shark. "Smile, you son of a bitch." Obviously, Nickelodeon can't say bitch because kids would get offended. Well, kids wouldn't get offended. Parents would get offended. Moms would get offended at that. So, I like watching this episode, and then at the end, they all paddle back to shore, just like the ending of Jaws. You all just slowly far out to sea and just have to like paddle your way back into shore. The whole episode is just shot for shot a remake of Jaws. It's the kids' version of Jaws. Even though Jaws is definitely a movie all kids should be able to see because it's not that scary. It's just, you know, it's a shark attacking people. It's still like it'd be cool like to almost show show your kid like, all right, we're gonna watch this movie, but I want you to watch this first. This is basically what you're gonna see, and now this is gonna be the real version. It's much scarier. So it's always cool when TV shows, especially kids shows, can throw in references to great movies and television shows that like you might be able to watch years later and think like, have I seen this before? Like, where have I seen this before? Like, the first time, like, I didn't watch the original Halloween until, like, the day before I saw the new Halloween, like, 2 years ago from 2018. I've only seen two of the Halloweens. I've seen the first one, and I've seen the newest one, and that's it. And when I watched the first movie, the first Halloween, I literally felt like I've seen that entire movie before. I felt like I've seen every scene in that movie. Because just throughout time, tons of movies have done rip-offs and remakes and parodies and, you know, inside jokes about different stuff, about different movies, popular movies and TV shows from the past. So that off the top of my head, I don't know which shows parodied Halloween, but there have definitely been a ton of TV shows that I've watched that have done it. And like Tarantino is by far like the man who is most famously known for throwing in pop culture references into his work. Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is literally a movie where you could write a dictionary about like all the different references to movies and TV within that show, within that movie. Same with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I guess some artists would think like that's being cheap and taking the easy way out and, you know, not being, you know, as creative, just ripping off other people's work. But without other people's work, we wouldn't be inspired to create the new work of today. So that's, that's all I have to really say about that. Do I have anything else to say? I don't really think I have anything else to say. I really hope you folks go and watch Jimmy Neutron. I hope, listening to this, if you've watched Jimmy Neutron in the past and you haven't seen it, maybe you can go out and take your time and watch another episode of it. There's always a lot of good ones out there. Pretty sure it's available on Paramount Plus right now. Nickelodeon's got a lot of shows on there. So that is really all I have to say about that today. I want to thank you folks for taking time out today to listen to me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed my rambling on about a boy genius and his two dumpy friends. Please join me for the next episode of Imagination Fun Time. I'm sure I will record that sometime in the next couple weeks. Until then, have a great day and have a great life, folks.